And we say a very good morning to Mr. Nico Kleynhans, and thank you for your time this morning, Nico.
Good morning to you and also to the listeners.
So, Nico, how has Christian radio changed over the past 60 years?
Yes, I just suddenly realized I'm old.
Sorry to remind you of that fact.
Well, 60 years ago, Christian radio didn't have an actual radio station. What happened, you had the English radio station, you had the Afrikaans radio station.
That's right.
And on Sundays, they had formal church services. And that was the only content you had in terms of Christian content.
And it was pre-recorded.
It was pre-recorded. And the preachers had to be specially licensed. And their sermons were checked before it went out on air.
Wow.
And so when it was your congregation's turn, everything had to be spot on. The studio people came, they did the recording, everybody had to be on their best behavior. So the choirs tended to be very formal choirs. Everybody was wanting to impress. Mommy and daddy were going to listen in and hear how the son, as the preacher, was going to do, because the preachers were male as well.
Oh, yes.
So it was very, very formal. But the sermons were planned. And you had to listen to the sermon in your lounge.
That's right.
Because your car didn't have a radio.
Yo.
So it was very different.
Very different.
And the people who tended to listen to those sermons were stay-at-home people who were sick in hospital.
Okay.
And that was the basic content of so-called Christian radio.
Sure.
All those years ago. But the music was very, very
traditional and formal. That's
very
right.
Formal.
So over the years that you've been involved here at CCFM, listeners connect and contact you very often. What are some of the unusual places that you bump into listeners?
Well, firstly, today, because of the internet, people don't always listen from their homes. I think that was the first thing I realized. And if they do listen from their homes don't have to be in Cape Town. So I've had messages from every single continent on the earth. So people have said to me, I've heard you on CCFM. I live in North America. I live in South America. I live in Asia. They've even listened in some countries where it would be illegal to listen to CCFM. And those people would have access through other means of getting the broadcast. But it's literally from all over the world.
That is incredible. And going back to the music, you mentioned about the music being trained choirs, very formal, traditional. Talk to us through Christian music.
Yes. Well, look, firstly, 60 years ago, the music would have all been Wesleyan type hymns.
Yeah.
That would have been it. Now, today, of course, if you listen to Christian music, it's a more flexible format, shall I put it that way? Jive, hip-hop, wall climbing, wall ceiling, stuff that young people would listen to.
We love
Sometimes you listen to particularly some of the Afrikaans. This woman is singing about a leifie, and you can't help liking the beat, but you think, well, I'm wondering what Wesley would have done about that if he was Charles and John Wesley.
Yes.
But it is certainly, it's changed the format.
It has.
And I think it's made worship more relevant. I think it's also been partly responsible for the massive evangelization amongst teenagers. I think it is the music that has made the gospel accessible.
Sure.
And it is in many ways easier to reach a teenager through music than it is to reach them through a formal sermon. And I think that's also what, for me, CCFM has done in the last 30-odd years. It speaks on less formal issues. It deals with family issues. We hear testimonies. We hear people speak of victory. We speak of depression. We speak of homelessness. We speak of things that we would not talk about 20 or 30 years ago, but we speak about it today. And so CCFM has made the gospel and ministry more accessible. But it also means that, just for me, for instance, I've worked out that about 3,000 people have made contact in the past 10 years with me.
Wow.
Where they've had direct questions only on finances.
Yeah.
So it's also been broader topics than my faith with God. It's how do I handle my finances? What do I do? In one case, the sheriff's at my door. They want to take my furniture.
Yeah.
I've got a baby. Well, that sheriff couldn't do that. That was illegal. And so I was able to tell that mother, don't let them in.
Yeah.
What the sheriff wants to do is against the law. I don't care what he's got in his hand. You're a young mother. He cannot take your kitchen equipment.
Sure.
That is illegal. Don't be bullied by that sheriff.
Yeah.
I've had people come to me where they say, I've started my business. I'm praying so hard. My business is not working. I've had over 500 such business people contact me in the past couple of years. And then we've been able to look at strategy and saying, how do we deal with it?
Yeah.
The picture I have is that CCFM is made up of people who are God's ambassadors. We have a role to play to make the ministry of God more accessible. And that ministry is through the prayers we offer, through the way we deal with it. But you as the listener also have a contribution, because this doesn't come from nothing. We don't get money from the government. We have to get money from the listeners. And so I want to encourage listeners to participate, because while there are many volunteers here, there are also people here who get paid by what listeners contribute. And we need to be responsible. And if we want this ministry to continue, and it has to continue, then we need to open our pockets. We need to make the money available so that the ministry can continue. And come along to some of the events, get an inside picture of how very busy this particular radio station is and how important it is in making a difference to God's community.
So if you want to partner with us here at CCFM, can we ask you just to spend a moment connecting with your Creator, with your Heavenly Father, and saying, God, how much should I give? And whatever amount it is, don't think, oh, but that's so little. Is it really going to make a difference? Every little bit helps. And we've really seen it, some 176 people yesterday pledging, some of them 50 Rand a month, some of them 100 Rand per month. And it all comes together and helps us to get to what we need on a daily, monthly, annual basis. So no amount is too small, no amount is too big. We've also had people come along and saying, you know what, I'm going to bless this ministry with 30,000 Rand. And every bit plays its part, makes a huge difference. But we cannot do this alone. We need your financial support. So would you consider sowing into this ministry? You can do it right here, right now, quick and easy, by sending us a WhatsApp message. If you want to do a voice note, you're welcome. If you want to do a text message, you're welcome. Just your name, the amount. Is it a once-off? Is it a monthly amount? And if you've got an email address, that would also be very helpful to add that in.
Yeah, even while we were in the studio, that young child has said, I'm going to give of my pocket money. It makes a difference.
It does. It really does. Every little bit makes a difference. Get your WhatsApp through to us, 061 798 1075, so that we can continue doing what God has called us to and being a voice in our city, in this country, and in the world.